Um, I know myself to be what Hegel calls the negative. And I have a broad understanding of Hegel's philosophy and the world, and I made an experience of God in which I became the mind of the One. And when it happens, one realizes that one uh, is the cause of all division, divide, suffering, and negativity, that which we call evil. So that is uh, a heavy burden to penetrate into the mind of the One, or to become one with God, because there is evil within God. Um, those who oppose a good God on the one side and an evil devil on the other, or that's the entire history of metaphysics and theology. How do you explain evil if there is a God? And if evil is external to God, then why doesn't God prevent evil? Is he powerless, or therefore he's not almighty? Or does he want evil, therefore he's not all good? The entire history of Western metaphysics and theology is full of these kind of questions, and there are philosophers or mystics who had a view, a conceptual or mystical view of God, in which evil was conceptualized or intuited or viewed as a moment of God. And I can name three thinkers: Jakob Böhm, the German mystic; Hegel, obviously; and Philip K. Dick, who uh, had an experience of God in which he acknowledged that there was a primordial evil within him, not within Philip K. Dick, within God. Because when you identify with God, you lose your empirical identity. You become molded into the divine totality. So Philip K. Dick acknowledged, while identifying with God, and when you identify with the One, or with the divine, or with God, you become one with the principle with which all the mystics of all ages have become one. So you become them in a way, because the distinction between subject and object, time and eternity, is abolished. So that's very complex. But Philip K. Dick acknowledged in his writings and the experience of the unity with God that there was a primordial evil within God. And this is what Hegel calls the negative. And I thought a lot about the negative, and I I wondered, uh, am I really evil? And from a philosophical standpoint, I know myself to be the negative. Therefore, I know from an abstract point of view that I am evil. I am not just evil, but I have evil within me. And in my intellectual development, when I was in the right-wing mindset, I had a vision. I know it sounds weird. I had grasped and understood in the broad outline the functioning, the working, the structure of what in the right-wing sphere they call the system. I understood after many months of reading, thinking, understanding, making connections, I saw the broad picture of what people call the system, of the system which brings about the replacement and the enslavement of Europeans. And when I had this understanding of the system, Big Brother, I had a feeling of awe, like it was awesome in a strange and terrifying way. And I found the system so brilliantly constructed, the ability to produce a totality in which all the parts are working together unconsciously for one common goal. For instance, in the question of the replacement of Europeans, you have all the spheres of society working together unconsciously. It's only at the very top that it is done consciously, but working unconsciously for the sole purpose of replacing Europeans. You have the educational system, you have the news, the newspapers, you have the media, the television, the political spectrum, the Senate, the Congress, the presidential house, whatever the country, the financial system, the church. You have all the spheres of public life, the artists, the political parties. They are all unconsciously working in harmony to bring about the replacement of Europeans. And when you are confronted with this view of the totality as being in the position in which I was, I identified as a European, and I felt love for Europeans, and I was afraid of the disappearance of Europeans. And when I had this understanding, this cognitive view of a totality which was against what I identified as myself, I was scared. But a part of me could not help but admire the genius of those who had implemented this system of annihilation, this peaceful process of replacement, which is actually not peaceful. It's a destructive machine, a finely tuned totality working for the sole purpose of replacing what I thought was my identity back then, namely my European identity. And I admired the genius of the architects who had produced this system. And I couldn't help but love them. And in my intellectual and spiritual development, there have been moments where I have hated the Jews because I projected all the ills of my world onto the Jews, and I hated them. But the more I studied them, the more I understood them, and the more I found them brilliant. They were, in my mind, at a certain moment, they were my enemy because I identified as a right-wing European willing to preserve his people. So they were the enemy because, in my view, they were working to bring about the replacement of Europeans. But I couldn't help but admire their intellectual genius. So I have an ambiguous relationship with the Jews because I understand them and I love them for their pure intelligence and this cognition of intelligence in the other, even though he may be an enemy from the limited perspective of yourself. If you can unite with the other in mind and in intellect, you are forced to acknowledge his brilliance. And I will put a video, a link to a scene of a movie, Heat, the scene where Robert De Niro and Al Pacino, who are enemies in the movie, but they have a profound respect for one another because they acknowledge one another's greatness, and they remain intellectual friends in spite of their enmities and their conflict, because that's the role that destiny has appointed them to play. But when they penetrate the mind of one another, they have respect for one another. And modern pop culture illustrates and expresses deep truths about the nature of the divine. And I will put the link to the scenes that I have in mind. And I just wanted to say that when you understand the other, you understand a part of yourself. And I will stop there for now, but yeah.